The rain hadn't let up for hours. Cold sheets of water blurred the city lights as they reflected off the slick Seattle streets. Officer Karen Morales adjusted the defroster in her cruiser, watching as the windshield wipers battled the downpour. The city was quieter than usual, like it was holding its breath. In the back seat, Rex sat like a statue. 5 years old, nearly 80 pounds of trained muscle and instinct. His eyes never stopped moving, scanning the sidewalks, the alleys, the storefronts they passed. Even after dozens of missions together, Morales still found herself glancing back at him, amazed at his stillness, how the comm could shift in an instant to controlled ferocity. Her phone buzzed. A message from her daughter, a selfie from a school project, completely innocent. Ordinary. She smiled briefly, but something in her chest was tight. She didn't know why. She just knew something was off tonight. Then it came. All units, code 55 in progress. Possible abduction reported. 2348 East Maple Drive. Suspect reportedly dragged. A female into an abandoned warehouse. Victim is 24 years old. Caller disconnected. The voice over the radio was calm, but seasoned ears like Morales could hear at the slight edge of urgency. Her hand snapped to the radio. Dispatch, Unit 14 en route. K9 deployed. ETA 3 minutes. Rex lifted his head as if he understood every word. Morales flicked on the lights and hit the siren. The cruiser roared to life, cutting through traffic like a blade. As they accelerated, she glanced in the rearview mirror again. "You ready, Rex?" she said aloud, her voice low. Rex met her eyes. No bark, just that intense, focused stare. The kind that said, always. She thought back to their last mission, a domestic hostage situation. Rex had tracked the suspect through 3 apartment floors in total silence and cornered him behind a boiler. The guy never saw him coming. That was Rex, relentless, precise. A ghost with teeth. Tonight felt heavier. She tapped her fingers against the steering wheel, mentally preparing for the worst. An abandoned warehouse. A young woman. No second call. No description of the attacker. This wasn't going to be a routine response. This was going to be a race. The rain thickened. The streetlights blurred. As they turned onto East Maple Drive, Morales slowed slightly and killed the siren. No need to announce themselves just yet. The warehouse appeared out of the gloom like a relic from another time. Rusted steel walls, graffiti-tagged doors, windows boarded up or shattered. A single street lamp flickered overhead, casting long, nervous shadows across the building's face. Morales parked 1 block away and turned off the engine. She could hear it now, the hum of rain on metal, the distant rumble of a passing freight train. She reached for her vest, clipped her flashlight to her belt, then opened the back door. "Come on, partner." Rex leapt out without hesitation, landing silently despite his size. He circled once, nose in the air, tail low and steady. Morales clipped on his harness, whispering the activation command she had spoken dozens of times before. "Find." Rex dropped his snout and began to move, leading her toward the chain-link gate left slightly ajar. It creaked in the wind. Inside, the warehouse was swallowed in shadow. Morales gripped her flashlight and her firearm, heart now pounding. In her chest, not out of fear, but anticipation. Whatever waited for them in that building, Rex was ready, and so was she. The gate creaked as Morales pushed it open, the metal groaning like a warning in the silence. The warehouse's outer yard was littered with old pallets, broken glass, and rusted machinery that hadn't moved in decades. The smell of wet concrete, oil, and old decay hung thick in the air. But Rex ignored it all. He had already picked up something else. Morales barely had time to unclip his leash before Rex surged forward, nose low to the ground. His entire body tense but controlled. His movements were precise, like a machine designed for one task, finding what others couldn't. "Track her, Rex. Let's go." The beam from Morales' flashlight scanned across the yard as she followed him, stepping carefully between sharp debris and deep puddles. Her eyes flicked from the ground to the broken windows above, to the shadows dancing along the warehouse walls. Rex led her to a side door, partially open. He paused and sniffed the air, then looked back at her. "Good boy," she whispered. Raising her weapon and nudging the door with her foot, it opened with a slow, painful groan. Inside, darkness swallowed everything. Morale's flashlight cut a narrow beam across the floor, dust swirling in the air, cobwebs drooping from overhead, beams, jagged metal parts lying in wait like hidden traps. The silence was unnatural to deep. No rats, no wind, just the distant hum of a leaking pipe and the sound of water dripping somewhere far off. Rex moved silently, nose leading the way. Then he stopped, tail up, ears forward. He let out a low, rumbling growl. Morales froze behind him. "What do you got?" Rex began circling a collapsed section of wall, pieces of concrete and sheet metal thrown aside, as if someone had cleared it in a hurry. Morales crouched down beside him, brushing away debris with her gloved hands. And then she saw it. A hole. A small opening in the floor, barely wide enough for a human to crawl through. It looked like a forgotten maintenance shaft or an old delivery chute, leading into total darkness. Fresh scuff marks on the edge. Someone had gone through it. Suddenly, from deep inside the shaft, a sound. Muffled. Desperate. A whimper. A woman's voice, faint but real. "Help, please." Morale's blood ran cold. She reached for her radio, whispering, "Dispatch, this is Unit 14. We have a possible location on the victim. Sending K9 into substructure. Advise backup to enter from east access. Over." Then she turned to Rex. He was staring at the hole, ears back, front paw lifted slightly. "Ready. Waiting. You know what to do." She knelt beside him, removed the tactical harness, and gave a command she'd only ever used twice before. "Tunnel in. Search and protect." Without hesitation, Rex disappeared into the shaft, swallowed by the dark. Morales waited, counting. Every heartbeat. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, then barking. Aggressive, sharp, rapid bursts, a fight. Something was happening down there. Morales didn't wait. She dropped to her knees and crawled in after him, heart pounding louder than the rain. Flashlight gripped in her shaking hand. This wasn't a search anymore. This was a rescue. The crawl space was barely shoulder wide. Morales felt her vest scrape against concrete with every inch forward. The air was thick, musty, damp and laced with something sharp. Gasoline? Somewhere ahead, she could still hear it, barking, echoing like gunshots in a tunnel. Rex's warning barks, and something else, a loud thud. A man shouting. A muffled scream. She pushed faster. Then, suddenly, space opened up. She tumbled out into a dim, cavernous sub-basement, maybe 30 feet wide, lit only by the flicker of a broken emergency light. Water pooled on the ground. Rusted pipes lined the walls like ribs in a monster's chest. And in the center of it all, chaos. Rex had the man on the ground. The attacker was screaming, arm caught in Rex's iron jaws, trying to shake him off. Blood mixed with the rainwater on the concrete. The man, mid-30s, scruffy, wild eyes, was flailing with one free hand, trying to reach a crowbar lying nearby. Morales didn't hesitate. "Seattle PD, do not move." She aimed her Glock at center mass, feet spread, voice steady. "Hands where I can see them now." The suspect froze, caught between a gun and a growling animal with teeth in his flesh. He whimpered. Rex didn't release. He didn't even blink. To Rex, the mission wasn't over. Not until Morales gave the word. She stepped forward cautiously, never lowering her weapon, and kicked the crowbar across the room. "Let him go, Rex." At her command, Rex released and backed away but didn't turn his back on the man. He stood guard, breathing hard, teeth bared, watching. The suspect didn't move. He was done. That's when Morales heard it. A quiet sob. She turned her light. There in the far corner, half hidden behind rusted barrels, was the woman, tied at the wrists and ankles, duct tape over her mouth, dirt on her face, eyes wide and filled with pure terror. Morales holstered her weapon and rushed to her. "You're safe. I'm Officer Morales. I've got you." She peeled away the tape gently, her fingers trembling with adrenaline. The woman gasped for air, eyes brimming with tears. "He was going to kill me," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Not tonight," Morales said softly. Thanks to him. She looked over at Rex. He was sitting now, calm, his tongue out, panting, eyes still on the suspect as if daring him to try something. The woman Emily, Morales would later learn, crawled toward Rex, ignoring the pain in her joints. She wrapped her arms around the dog's thick neck and cried into his fur. Rex didn't move, didn't pull away. He just stood there solid, unshakable, the kind of protector you pray shows up when no one else can. Morales looked at the bloodied suspect, now handcuffed and whimpering on the floor, and then at her partner. "Hell of a job, Rex," she said, and she meant it. He hadn't just taken down a dangerous man, he had saved a life. 2 weeks later, the skies were blue, but the wind carried the crisp bite of early autumn through downtown Seattle. Outside the precinct, dozens had gathered, officers in dress blues, local press, community members, and a few quiet strangers who had simply heard about what happened and showed up to say thank you. A banner hung above the steps, Seattle Police Department honoring K-9 Officer Rexit. The center of it all stood Officer Karen Morales in full uniform, hat in hand, and beside her Rex, calm, proud, tail gently wagging as if he had no idea this was all for him. But he knew, not the cameras or the medals or the applause. He knew that something had changed. Emily, the woman he saved, stood in the front row. Her wrists were still bruised, but her eyes were clear. She held a bouquet of white roses. As Morales stepped to the microphone, Emily locked eyes with Rex and gave him the smallest, purest smile. He tilted his head slightly as if he remembered every second of that terrible night. Morales adjusted the mic, her voice clear but thick with emotion. 2 weeks ago, we got a call that could have ended in tragedy. A young woman abducted, a violent man hiding in the shadows of a place even most officers would hesitate to enter. But one of our own didn't hesitate. One of our own went in, fearless, loyal, and focused not because he was told to, but because that's who he is. She looked down at Rex. He didn't just find the victim. He protected her. He stood between her and death, and he brought her home. Applause broke out loud, rising, echoing off the precinct walls. But Rex didn't flinch. Morales reached into a small case and pulled out a silver badge, smaller than hers, custom-made. It read, K-9 Officer Rex, badge 847. She knelt and gently clipped it to Rex's harness. "You earned this, partner." Rex gave a single bark short, proud, almost like a salute. And for the first time, Morales couldn't stop the tears. She wiped them away quickly, not out of shame, but respect. You don't cry for Rex. You cry because you got to know him. After the ceremony, people came up to pet him, to thank him. Kids asked if he was a superhero. One little boy said, "I want to be like Rex when I grow up." Morales smiled. "You'd be lucky to be half as brave." Later, as the sun began to dip behind the skyline, Morales and Rex sat outside the precinct together. No crowds, no fanfare, just quiet. She reached down and scratched behind his ear, the way he liked. "You know, you're not just a K-9, right? You're family." Rex leaned into her hand, eyes soft, breathing slow. And in that quiet moment, Morales realized something. You can train obedience. You can teach commands. But courage like Rex's, that's not learned. That's born. That's loyalty, written into the very soul of a dog who chose to stand between evil and innocence. Not for reward, not for praise, but because that's what heroes do.